Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the fourth episode of the video interview series brought to you by ETHR World Southeast Asia in collaboration with Enparadigm on the theme Talent Management and Development for the Future of Work. I'm Yasmin Taj, editor, ETHR World International, and head of branded content for the Economic Times. And it is my pleasure to be amongst you today. Undoubtedly, the strategic role of L&D has become critical to amplifying the talent development space. From developing people's capabilities and finding the right learning modules to attract, nurture, or retain talent to creating a value-based culture, everything about learning and development today is shifting. And to delve deeper into how leaders can solidify their learning infrastructure by understanding the diverse needs of their talent and how they can create a culture of continuous learning and navigate the big shifts in the talent space, we are hosting this interview series in partnership with Enparadigm. And for today's exclusive episode, we have with us Sarmista Mondol, who's Global Learning and Development Leader at IBM Singapore, and John Cherian, who's CEO of Enparadigm. Sarmista has over 17 years of experience in the learning and development space and has played several key global roles as a management consultant, instructional designer, facilitator, and training manager. She joined IBM as a manager in the Cloud Application Innovation, Learning and Knowledge team in 2015 and currently leads the company's global learning and development function. Her keen eye to visualize the future, along with consistently showing personal interest and keeping her team engaged to get things done, have been key to her success as a leader. And we have with us John Cherian, who's CEO of Enparadigm, who is driven by the potential of purpose-driven business to make the world more meaningful. His endeavor to make the complex simple and his belief in the power of learning to make people and businesses better has been the significant driving force in the Enparadigm journey. So thank you so much, Sarmista and John, for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you,
Great.
Yasmin.
All right. So I'm looking forward to hearing some great insights from the both of you. And to begin with, I'll start with the usual question that I ask most of the leaders I talk to. And it's about what are the trends that you think will be driving the talent management and development function in this year and beyond? Sarmista, would you like to start first on that?
Sure. I mean, it's a very critical question. First, I think an awareness that we are living in a boundaryless world as far as work is concerned, where hierarchies, structures are continually disappearing. That whole awareness is very, very critical. So that's important. So that means that roles are very fluid, jobs are very fluid. So we have to design work, our whole talent management function accordingly. So that's one. And also one key thing which a lot of people are talking about now is human sustainability, which means that not only focusing on your own employees' skilling, reskilling, upskilling, but also looking out to the larger society, how you can leverage other communities where you can actually look at the talent from those spaces. So yeah, I think these are two things which are very critical at this point in time.
That's really important. I think I also totally agree that the way you can redesign jobs and roles and analyze skills accordingly and build people on those lines, I think is going to be very important for the future. John, what are your thoughts? What trends are you seeing in your experience with working with so many large organizations today?
Yeah, so we are sitting with a cloud learning leader, right? So the word that comes to my mind today is a talent cloud and the talent marketplace, right? And to give an analogy, let's rewind the clock back to say about 2001, 2002, and 2003, 4, 5, when Amazon actually brought out the Amazon cloud, right? And at that point in time, most organizations were having on-premise server equipment, right? And all the technical technology capacity was within the organization, right? And today, 15 years later, we are finding that cloud has overtaken on-premise by a big margin, right? And there's been a huge shift. We are looking at the same kind of shift in talent today, right? So we are moving from a world where you have on-premise employees as talent, right, to a world where organizations are increasingly plugging into a talent cloud, right? And instead of looking at one person full time, organizations are shifting to a more fractional model, right, where you're looking at multiple people with multiple skill sets, and each organization may only use a fraction of the capability of a person, but each person may be working with multiple organizations, right? So I would echo the word boundaryless, right? So along with boundaryless, being able to work in a very flexible, fluid environment. So this is where the world of work is clearly headed.
Gig economy, I think.
Yeah, gig economy is definitely part of that, right? We were so used to hearing the word gig economy, being used in the context of more, blue collar skills,
Yeah.
right? Whether cabs, whether it be delivery, logistics. But in the last 3 years, that has significantly expanded, right? With the advent of COVID and with the advent of hybrid and remote work, we discovered that a lot of work can be done, like this, the way we are talking today, right? You don't have to be physically present full time to achieve outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Today, your coworkers are not really people who share the same organization with you, but in many cases, your coworkers are people who are on the Zoom call with you, right?
Yeah.
And the next Zoom call, it's a completely different team who is with you, and you're trying to achieve some other outcome, right? So this is what is happening to the world of work around us. So the world of talent management, the world of talent development, obviously has to adapt to this changing world.
Absolutely.
In
I
fact,
think yes, Sarmista, please.
something about a research which says that 36% of the the US workforce is actually part of gig economy.
Absolutely interesting. Yeah. So I think fluid, flexible keywords going forward in the world of work. But I'm still a little wary about how many organizations will really adapt to this. But that is the way forward that I can see, because we heard a lot of terms like moonlighting. Some companies were accepting it, some were not. So a lot of that is happening around. But I think flexibility and fluidity is what even the workforce is looking for. And as both of you leaders agree today. Great. Moving on to my next question, Sharmishta, we do see that the changes have been rampant and drastic and transformational. But so a lot of challenges have also cropped up, right? Due to these, what challenges have you seen as a talent leader, and especially in this the talent development function today? And what do you think are the key ways to navigate these challenges?
First thing is very critical to understand, and this we have been talking for a long time. Your organization, which focuses on your people, actually gets the performance. That has to be a key mantra, goes without saying. That's one. First, and very related to this is how do you engage your learners, your employees? One of the key things to do is, of course, building a learning ecosystem which they are engaged in. And sometimes what is happening, and many a time we are looking at solutions. This is work for this company. This is going to be okay for my company. But really going back to your business context, going back to your learners, again, in the same business unit, my learning requirements can be very different from your learning requirements. So we have to, figure that out. And using technology, this is the best time to use the right technology, and I'm sure we'll have some insights here. But yes, really making use of the right learning technology and creating those customized individual learning journeys, so your employees are absolutely engaged and they are part of their very curated learning journey. So that is something which we really need to be consciously doing at an organizational level.
Yeah, I think what I hear from you is learning needs to be very contextual, and it has to be made very relevant and aligned to what the employee needs also and what the business requires at it. John, what are your thoughts on that? What other challenges, or what are the main challenges you are seeing in the talent development function today?
So I use the word fractional sometime back.
Yeah.
This is a time to add the word fragmented there, right? So one of the challenges that organizations are facing today is that that our ability to maintain and build culture in organizations today, we are in a very different landscape, right? So the landscape and the environment in which we were building our culture 5 years back, and the environment that we are here today in are very different, right? So when employees are working in a hybrid mode, remote work mode, boundaryless world, it becomes very difficult for people to have that consistency of or that alignment in terms of the company's values, the culture, the purpose of the business, right? And that becomes a major challenge for the learning teams as well, right? Because they are tasked with the job of building and maintaining culture, right? And to add to this, in terms of expectations, right? Clearly, we are moving to a world where hyper-personalization becomes a hygiene expectation, right? And this is not even a word that was there in the dictionary for any of us 5 years back, right? So employees also would not want, standard courses, one size fits all kind of courses, but they would want, learning inputs which are relevant and contextual, like you rightly mentioned, right? So the challenge for learning leaders is how do you bring in the right technology
Yeah.
to help and support this, because this is definitely not something that can be done manually, right? Technology plays a big role, AI plays a big role in this. Now, thankfully, there is a lot of technology today which is able to kind of add value to the business. Right?
Yeah.
And the question is about how do you find it and how do you fit it into your overall stack from the learning side.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in my conversation with a lot of learning leaders, hyper-personalization is exactly what they're looking for. But it becomes challenging when you're dealing with thousands and thousands of employees, right? But as you said, technology can play a very key role in bringing that together, kind of creating groups and matching those expectations, saying, aligning those, making it contextual and relevant for the learners that way. So that's the way forward. Sharmishta, I think John just touched upon how expectations of employees have also changed from employers, especially when it comes to their own career development also. Anything you'd like to add to that? How are these expectations changing?
So it all depends on where an employee is in his or her career journey. What somebody, let's say in his 50s may want is very different from what a person who's just a graduate hire. So we have to understand that. But yes, for the last few years and several years, we know that employees are looking at organizations which focus on their reskilling and upskilling. That is very important for them, especially people from the age from 20s to 30s to 40. That is very critical for them. So that's very important for them. How this reskilling is helping them enrich their experience, that is something important as a worker. So that's very critical. And another thing which we must also acknowledge is that we have been talking about quiet resignation. People are moving. If they are dissatisfied, they'll definitely move out. So we definitely need to kind of help our organization curate those journeys, learning journeys, which are absolutely relevant and which will help the organization progress with the help of the whole concept of human or talent sustainability.
Yeah. So tell me
I'd like
this.
to add
Yes, John.
what you mentioned, right? So in terms of priorities, right? I mean, Sharmista just talked about employees in maybe their 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, right? And we are seeing that with each generation, the shift from a safety, stability, security world, right, to a world where there's a lot of VUCA, a lot of volatility and uncertainty. And therefore, for a lot of people, the question will be, what am I going to gain now, right? I'm not going to be waiting 10, 15 years for the outcome, for the career outcome that I want, right? Or for the impact outcome that I want.
Yes.
The question that employees are asking is, what's in it for me here and now, right? And therefore, learning and growth, have moved up from maybe 5th or 6th priority in employee value propositions to being the number 1 and number 2 priorities today, right? And that's challenging for organizations, right?
It is.
How does companies facilitate that for them? And that's where the learning function plays a really, really big role.
Yeah, so I have a follow-up. Yeah, Sharmishta, please.
One of your blogs, I think, where you mentioned about the designations, the roles, that has kind of become very fluid. And people, of course, they want progression, etc. But more essential is the impact they're making. And we as talent leaders have to ensure that we kind of help them do that the kind of impact they're making within the organization and also outside.
Yeah.
Impact is a very, very, dicey word, because the employee says, I want to create impact, and the manager says, just go and do your work, right? And a lot of tussle like that between managers and their teams, right? But I think it's important to help people find that purpose.
Yes.
Many times for managers, I think the challenge is that maybe their teams don't have the skill or the capability to deliver the outcome or the impact,
Hmm.
right? And therefore, the manager may kind of break down the work, make it simpler, and give it down. But the employee aspires to do more, right?
Yeah.
This is again a place where learning functions can really help in bridging the gap between what the aspiration is versus what the capability is, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Interesting point. I have a very quick, interesting question to ask. Do you think learning and development or career development journeys can act as retention tools in the kind of world that we're living in, where there's quite resignation happening, where there's a lot of movement happening in the talent market? Do you think it can act as a retention tool?
Definitely goes without saying. It has for the longest time. Learning and development, how much an organization is kind of investing in my education, be it certification, be it my leadership skills, that plays a very important role in retaining employees, because it's not really possible all the time for the management to, as I said, to progress an employee or for that matter, to give you a certain kind of compensation. But this is something which really helps the employee, the person, the individual kind of empower himself and, and be not only a better employee, but also a better individual in the society.
Exactly. Great.
In fact, one of the largest surveys last year
Hmm.
actually had a number of more than 60% of people saying that they might want to look out.
Yes.
With 10% saying that compensation is the reason, right? So what do the other 50% want, right? What is the reason why they are still looking? So a lot of times investment becomes a challenge that I'm maybe disconnected with the company, right? Many times I'm disconnected with my immediate boss, my manager. I didn't like the way I was treated, right? I'm not feeling that connect, right? And many times it may not have to do with these, right? I like my manager, I like my company, but I don't know if I'm going to grow to the level of my aspirations here, right? I'm not seeing that visibility,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Great, great. Thanks for sharing that. Now coming to the entire ecosystem of skills and how it has transformed in the past few years. Skills have a very short shelf life, they come and go. So, but Sarmista, according to you, what do you think are the top 3 skills amongst the many that they are there, which will actually kind of empower or power the future of work?
I can definitely talk about okay, first important thing is we need to really focus on the power skills, which is the longest time called soft skills.
Yeah.
So that has been very critical, and we know how it has over the last few years, it's emerged as something very critical across industries. So in that space, I think critical thinking is something which is a very important skill, and it is actually it encompasses trying to figure out what the problem is, going deep in the problem, and then coming up with a solution in a certain amount of time, and then communicating what the problem and the solution for that is. So that critical thinking is important. Emotionally intelligent people, of course, will always be cherished in an organization. Another thing, especially related to my industry, artificial intelligence right now is extremely important. Another thing what I can talk about is sustainability, especially using different kinds of technology to help organizations become more and more sustainable, help them, reach their sustainability goals. These are the few things, it's a mix and match of power skills plus technology skills. That is something which I think are very critical at this point.
Great. I do agree to that. John, I'd like to hear you before I comment.
Yeah, I think Sarmista's answer says it all, right? She didn't stop at 3 skills, right?
Yeah.
Because you just can't stop at 3. There are a lot of skills that are,
Yes.
whether you like it or not, required.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to maybe build on what Sarmista mentioned. I think the first is, now we're starting to call them power skills, right? We're not calling them soft skills.
Exactly.
But I don't think too many people pause to think why we are calling them power skills, right? If you actually pause and reflect, you realize that they're called power skills because these are skills that help you navigate the organization's power structure, right? Your ability to influence, your ability to negotiate, your ability to make a business case, your ability to storytell, right? These are skills that a lot of people probably don't understand the importance of, and how that actually makes a big difference in your career growth as you go forward, right? So the core, you definitely need your core technical skills depending on which function you're from. But on top of those technical skills, these power skills are then what is going to make the impact, right? So that definitely becomes very important. And one skill that I always keep calling out again is empathy, right? What is your empathy for people around you? Are you able to put yourself in their shoes? Because a lot of times, what you're building for, or what you're planning for, or what you're making for, is not for you. It's for someone else, right? So that's where this becomes very critical. Math has always been important in school and college, right? In corporate, that's become AI, right? And unfortunately, a lot of us are not very clued in on what exactly or how exactly AI works, right? We all have the buzz, we all understand maybe to some extent what the impact of AI is today, but how to make AI work, how to make AI work for a business problem or a business solution, it's not something that too many people really are clued into, right? So again, that becomes a very necessary skill as we go forward.
I think I love the part that now, power skills have become so important, because there was a time when we were shifting away from softer skills, calling them softer skills, and the focus is more on technical skills. But the way the world of work has evolved and the way the focus has come back on these kind of power skills, your power of influencing, decision making, creative thinking, problem solving, these are so important in the kind of VUCA world that we're living in. That's very interesting. Obviously, adding to that AI, digital skills that will always be relevant. So thanks for sharing that. Now, my final question, and Sarmista, I'd like to hear you first on that. How can we solidify the entire learning infrastructure to create a future-ready workforce, to build a continuous learning culture? How can we do all of that, considering the kind of times you're living in now?
That's a very valid question. And when you talk about learning infrastructure, it actually talks about not only technology reporting, the courses which you have, what kinds of courses which you have, other than also people who are involved in developing, curating, delivering these programs. Okay. So it all depends on an organization, how much you want to invest, what is your growth looking at. Maybe a big organization may want to have an in-house development team which actually curates a kind of, or they have their own learning management system, everything. However, a smaller organization may not want to do that. They may want to just get courses from elsewhere and then share it with their employees. So it all depends on the organization's needs. But again, as I said, there are all these options which are available, which may not have been available in the past decade or so, where a small organization or a medium-scale organization can actually go outside and get these courses and, kind of curate them for their own employees.
Yeah.
I think, yes, so that is what my thoughts on learning infrastructure is. Again, very important, whatever you do, not only relevant, but measurement is very important. Even if you're getting courses from outside, making sure they are effective, they are meeting objectives which you have designed is very critical, or else whatever investment is you're making doesn't make sense at all.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I think what is impactful needs to be measured, the impact. Otherwise, you can't figure out whether it's working for you or not. That's very important. And when it comes to creating a learning infrastructure, having the right tools, technology, having the most relevant contextual courses is important. John, what are your thoughts? You've been working in this space for so many years. How can we solidify the whole learning ecosystem?
So, I'm going to give an analogy, right? So, what has happened to the world of food, right, or the world of food ordering? 5 years back, we all used to maybe pick the phone, ask our friends, where do we get food from, call a few restaurants that are well known, right, and literally have that call with the restaurant team to find out what we can order, right? And today, the world of food tech infrastructure has changed that whole paradigm, right? You have online apps, you have a delivery system, you have, very clearly, when the food will be delivered to your doorstep, right? And the world of food ordering has completely changed, right? The learning world is going through a similar transformation in the corporate space, right? Today, you're having systems which are able to bring in together multiple aspects of talent management and development, right? Right from understanding what skills, competencies are required for each role, to, helping talent, assess and develop themselves in a self-serve mode, and also giving the organization visibility in terms of who is your future talent, who are your high posts, who are the successors, who are ready for promotion, right? Historically, learning functions have had to use what we call point-in-time solutions, right? Where you do that annual assessment, or you do that 2-day developmental intervention, or that 5-day development intervention once in a year. We are moving to a world where a lot of this is happening continuously, right? So the whole assessment and development roadway or the pathway from where you are today to where you need to be, a lot of that is happening on a continuous development mode today compared to where we were, several years back.
I think that's a great point. I think learning and development has become, as you said, it's become something which is a horizontal, which goes across the employee life cycle. No matter what stage you're at, there's learning required everywhere. And that's the kind of infrastructure that is required. And as I think both of you very rightly said, that the focus on learning and development, the focus on upskilling your people, creating a learning culture, making them future ready, has really kind of, grown multifold in the past few years. And that's very, very interesting for everyone to know, because it's not just employees focusing on their own growth. Employees are also equally interested, and aligning their aspirations with the business aspirations, and then building a ecosystem like that is going to be the way forward. So on that note, John and Sarmista, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. It was a very, very interesting and insightful episode for me. I learned a lot from the both of you. Any closing notes that you would like to share before we wrap up? I'll be happy to hear that.
That's a tricky question.
The future of learning, if you could summarize that in one line, what would it be?
So I think my one line would be personalization, immersion, and integration into the business lifecycle.
Awesome. Sarmista, what about you?
I think this goes for all learning and development teams. Think like a business organization. It's important for you to think about what you're investing in, coming up with your evaluation mechanism, and showing the business your results, the learning results. That's important. I think that's something which is very critical to success of any learning and development team.
Absolutely. Yes. I think investment in learning does make business sense, and that's something we've really, really realized. So thanks for sharing that. And John, I totally agree. It's the era of hyper-personalization, customization. Create that kind of learning paths for your people, and they will stay with you. So on that note, once again, thank you, Sarmista. Thank you, John. It was a great episode. Thank you for joining us. And for all the people watching us, do stay tuned for the next episode again. Thank you and take care, everyone. Bye-bye.